Please welcome Captain at the Texas Department of Public Safety, John Miller.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is John Miller. I'm a captain with the Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Ranger Division Special Operations Group. We are an organization that responds to critical man-made and natural disasters across the entire state of Texas, focusing on everything from border security operations to hostage rescue events at the tactical level, and augmented by our Border Security Operations Center and Joint Operation Intelligence Centers spread across the Texas border at the operational and strategic level. I'm going to be talking to you about the run-through of events leading up to the flooding events on the 4th of July in Kerr County. 2 months ago today, in hours of darkness, there was a massive storm system that gathered over Kerr County and dropped a record amount of rainfall in Kerr County, specifically the area upriver of Hunt, Texas, going through the South Fork of the Guadalupe, really starting at Camp Mystic. At the time period from midnight to 3 a.m., stream velocity rapidly increased in that area, going from an average rate of about 50 gallons a second through the South Fork flood gauges that we have, going up to, in the next 3 hours, 250 gallons per second. In the next 30 minutes, that 250 gallons per second jumped to 125,000 gallons per second, which equates to about 10 foot of flooding in the Kerr County area. However, in the next 30 minutes, that rate increased from 125,000 gallons per second to 900,000 gallons per second, making a storm system pass through the city of Hunt, Ingram, Kerrville, Center Point, crossing the Kerr-Kendall County line into the city of Comfort at approximately 1.7 million gallons per second. That storm system continued its path of travel through Kendall County, going to the Kendall-Comal County line and continuing for an additional 27 miles before the Guadalupe River dumps into Canyon Lake. With that, we had approximately a 127-mile area that we needed to work through. And I want to say before I move forward that this is all preliminary flood information, as academics and experts are still trying to make sense and accurately model what happened on the flood event. However, what we do know is that on the morning of the 4th of July, 39 children lost their lives in the initial storm that came through. Those 39 children ranged in ages of 18 months to 18 years old. Additionally, with that, 80 adults were lost. And making this extremely difficult is the 3 primary loss sites that we had during the flood event are all campgrounds that were heavily populated due to the fact that it was the 4th of July and people were trying to get riverfront access to planned 4th of July activities in Kerr County. With that being said, 10 foot of flooding in Kerr County when we were at the 125,000 gallons per second is somewhat usual. That area is prone to flooding. There have been numerous flooding events. However, this flooding event that came through the area was truly off the records. I arrived in Kerrville on the 4th of July, where I've been in the incident command role for the entire time. This is my first 2 days away from there, and thank you, Palantir, for the opportunity. So I'm going to talk about what happened before my arrival on the day of the 4th. At around 4 a.m., local first responders and pre-stage rescue elements activated in response to the flood event. Inaccurate and impartial information dominated the space when we first showed up, but through systematic interviews with witnesses and survivors, as well as listening to 911 emergency calls, we were able to start reconstructing the event, and understandably so with the impartial and inaccurate information, as the victim's sense of time and space was greatly skewed by the sheer terror of being in a life-or-death situation, mirrored with the fact that they were working in torrential downpours, unable to see other than quick flashes of lightning that were going through the area at 4 a.m., and completely unable to notice anything except the audible and visual signatures of being up on the second floor or higher elevation of their houses, hearing victims go by in cars with headlights on, screaming for help, and trying to reconstruct what had taken place around them. With that information that we gathered from those survivors and through teams on the ground reporting back information, we were able to realize that the initial modeling on flood levels that we got was inaccurate, and flood levels had been on average 30 to 40 feet as it was going through the South Fork AOR. As that flood continued through the South Fork and met with rock faces and restricted terrain features, reflective pressures pushed the flood waters up to as high as 84 feet in some places. And as that floodplain opened up and came into the floodplain areas near Kerrville, Ingram, and Center Point, pushed out sometimes up to a mile from centerline on the river, taking destruction and debris with it. Now, what we were able to do with that information was start tracking and guiding the efforts of first responders, shown behind here, shown behind me in pink, to direct their efforts in our initial early phases of operation. As geography and time increase in any critical event management, specifically a multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency response, we need to effectively manage the distribution of figuring out victims, survivors, and severe property damage across 127 river miles. The need to identify and inform these locations was paramount, and we needed a tool set to accomplish all of these tasks systematically without duplicating efforts and avoiding circular reporting consistently. The need for a consolidated common intelligence and common operating picture was very apparent during initial phases of the operation. The DPS tax server and SARCOP software that we're using to track operations was very effective initially. However, these two systems that were the primary sources of information for us were not consolidated, were not federated, and were not able to ingest outside data feeds showing critical information that we needed. For example, maintaining a single source where we could track property damage, property locations, and develop a system for granting and receiving access from property owners to go onto their properties and further assess the damage and search for victims. Through the event, at the end of that first week, extremely chaotic, high volume of casualties coming through the area, we were able to finally be asked by all local, state, and federal leadership, what do you need to continue this colossal task of finding these victims? To Dr. Karp's point, I was one of those young Special Forces soldiers working in Afghanistan that had the fortunate opportunity of utilizing Palantir to inform where my Special Forces team was operating. And I knew that there was one answer to that question. We needed assistance from Palantir to build a common operating picture that we would use to drive future operations. DPS leadership received that request for support. Contact was made between DPS leadership, Mark Bennett, and Lila, and the ball started moving forward and getting Palantir out to Texas. We wrapped up our initial conversations with Palantir and that request for support at about 5 p.m. local time back in Texas. From there, the very next day, engineers flew in from Washington, D.C., New York City, and Rory, Jake, and Patrick joined my team on the ground and were sitting next to me in that EOC by 11 a.m. With that, they built the entire Gaia Foundry instance you've been seeing behind me in less than 48 hours. As that 48-hour time period passed and the instance was fully mission capable, we began integrating other key stakeholders, and this platform became the center of gravity, not just for a sole agency, but for the event overall. With input from our leadership team, ground units, and very critical and very useful injects from the Palantir team, we were able to consistently improve and optimize the platform from that point forward with every operational day to increase our efficiency in the area of operation. We were able to build in systems for indicators and warnings, taking real-time stream information from USGS and multiple other sources, and monitor and utilize that historic data and real-time variables to develop something more than your standard linear regression models and actually do time series analysis and ARIMA models to figure out where we need to go next and develop a system for what needed to happen as follow-on rain systems came through the area. As those disparate but unified efforts were able to start visualizing the graphics that we had at the micro, meso, and macro level unit of analyses, we were able to begin generating statistical analyses as well as predictive analysis for future operational periods. That has allowed us to synthesize maritime, ground, and aerial sensors to direct maritime and ground teams in their search efforts. The search strategy at this point has been through multiple phases, putting our main search efforts at the highest probability locations, guided by spatial and temporal analysis to place duplicative efforts at all phases of the operation and be able, through one of our chief investigators, Mr. Don Carter, give the families accurate information about the disposition of their loved ones during the event. We were also able to develop a process of cleaning that data, finding where we could give information to those families and drive that effort forward even further, integrating in intelligence and investigative functions within the team. Palantir has supported us through all 5 phases of the operation, beginning with our hasty search through the area, combing 127 miles in a period of under 3.5 days with approximately 3,000 rescue efforts that were in the area. We're able to generate and manage target intelligence locations based off of reporting back off multiple sensors, go into a very thorough maritime search of the entire affected AOR, and lead into our final phase of operation, where we're working on geophysical data collection sourced from synthetic aperture radar, high-density LiDAR, high-density and high-fidelity visual imagery that's been captured, overlay that with magnetometry, thermal scans, and then use ground sensors with ground-penetrating radar, methane and LiDAR to figure out where victims are. So in giving this presentation and saying everything that I've said up here today, I'd like to close out firstly by saying thank you to Dr. Karp and Palantir. Before joining the military, before going into college and grad school, and finding my way into DPS and the Ranger Special Operations Group, I was raised in Kerrville, Texas, where my parents and my grandparents still live, and several close family friends were lost in the event. So from Kerrville and the citizens of Kerr County, citizens of Texas, from the unified command, from the search efforts that have been out there at the local, state, and then national level, as well as the international searchers that have come in to help us, thank you for giving us the unfair advantage as we continue this Herculean task of finding our last 2 victims of the 119 victims total. As we found 117 victims in record time and really outside, well above center mass for an event like this, we're still not calling this a victory, as we still have 2 victims that are unaccounted for. So to the families of those victims, specifically to the family of Mr. Jeff Ramsey, father who was swept away with his wife on the morning of the 4th, and Seal Stewart, a beautiful young 8-year-old camper at Camp Mystic that we're still looking for. To her parents, Will and Cece, thank you for trusting us with this most important mission that we've had. Thank you for allowing us to bring in all these technology sources to search for your loved one and giving us the time and space to employ all these assets to bring some resolution. We love you guys. Thank you for trusting us. And thank you to all the people in this room for helping us continue having that unfair advantage and bring these last 2 home. Thank you.